Senator Dole, welcome to Election 80.
Thank you very much.
Leadership is a quality the American people are demanding from a president. Many Americans feel that we are not receiving the strong, effective leadership that America should be. How would you define leadership?
Well, I would define leadership as competence, commitment, compassion, and I think beyond those descriptive words must be a quality of being able to work with your colleagues, whether it's in your business or your school or in politics. I mean, in my case, am I an effective senator? Have I been an effective leader in the Senate of the United States in the past 12 years? Can I work with my colleagues, Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives? I think this is the real measure of leadership, and I would suggest would be a strength that I would have when I become president.
To help further clarify your position, who would you consider to be the three most effective leaders in history, and why would you choose those three people?
Well, I haven't thought a great deal about, and I don't want to just stick to Republicans, being a Republican, but I would say that maybe it's because I'm recording this on Lincoln's birthday, but certainly President Lincoln kept the Union together, provided great leadership for the nation, provided leadership for the Republican Party. I think probably a more current leader would be General Eisenhower. Again, maybe admit some bias since he grew up in the state of Kansas. I think in a recent poll taken just the past couple of weeks, the American people were asked, in effect, who would you like to see the leader of this country? And the answer came out, Dwight Eisenhower. Certainly, he was a war hero. He served his country in time of war and time of peace. He was just what the country needed after World War II, a steady leader, honest, decent, bubbling with leadership and enthusiasm for America. And I think even on a more current note, and someone who's alive and well, history will record that Gerald Ford was a great leader in this country. You know, when you look at President Ford coming into the presidency after the departure of President Nixon, the first time that had happened in our history, sort of putting the country back together again. Here he was, a Republican president, dealing with a Democratic Congress, not only bringing back decency into the White House and dignity in the White House, but having the skill and the wisdom to work with the Congress to bring down inflation, to get our country moving again. When the history is written in 20, 30, 50, 100 years, we'll find the name of Gerald Ford high on the list.
I'd like to move into the present situation with those questions, or maybe some past aspects, at least as far as your career is concerned. What decisions have you made in your past that would best reflect your effectiveness as a leader?
Well, I think first of all, maybe it's not a decision, but I think maybe it's a competitive, gets back to commitment, to competition, decisions that I made in my early years in high school as far as competition in sports and in the classroom, being an achiever in that sense. The decision to go on to college. I didn't have the money, but I was able to borrow, as I remember, $300 and waited on tables and in my fraternity house. So I made that decision. I guess the decision to enlist in World War II, though I must confess that had I not enlisted, the draft board might have gotten me, but I made that decision on my own, and I spent 5.5 years in the Army, 39 months in Army hospitals because of wounds, and then again the decision to seek public office. I mean, I think all these decisions are somewhat the measure of the man. I've tried to be an achiever. I've never had wealth or position, nor did my family. But by making the right decisions and with a certain amount of luck and a lot of support from good friends in my state, I was elected to Congress, and then in '68 elected to the United States Senate, and then a decision I didn't make, but one that President Ford made. I was privileged to run with him in '76 as his running mate. These decisions, as far as the public, as far as the public life, I think have been important. I've made many legislative decisions. Of course, you make those on a daily basis, but it would seem to me, as I look back over my lifetime and look at the key decisions I made that became building blocks in a career that I hope has been a useful one, and one which I've been able to display leadership and compassion and commitment and competence, are based on the way I was raised by my mother and father, the fact that I worked for nearly everything I have, and it's been, I believe, to some measure, a success story.
What I'd like to do now is speculate a little bit. Today, America is confronted with a crisis situation. Americans are faced with a constant reoccurrence of inflation and recession, rising food prices, rising fuel prices, rising unemployment, and of course the enigma itself, the energy crisis. Right. These are the kinds of problems that you would be confronted on a daily basis if elected president. What kinds of plans or proposals or ideas do you have to resolve these problems? And please be specific.
Right, that's a tough one. If I say when elected president, the first thing I'll do after the inauguration is to convene, informally, of course, a meeting with the leaders of Congress, whether they be Democrats or Republicans. In fact, they'll all be there, leaders of both parties, to sit down and discuss on the very first day, the very first act of my presidency, the very issues you talked about: inflation, energy, consumer prices, price of heating oil, health care, and see if we can't work out an agenda for the 80s in a bipartisan spirit. It would be my first day of a 4-year term. It would immediately diffuse any political overtones. It would seem to me that rather than to say, well, I have this energy plan and that inflation plan and this plan, the first thing you must lay is the groundwork. And I look back, frankly, at some of President Carter's problem. It's been because he never fully understood the Congress. It's hard to believe that Hamilton Jordan, the key man in the White House, had never really met Tip O'Neill in 30 months, the Speaker of the House, had never had a conversation with Robert Byrd, the Democratic Majority Leader. So first you lay the groundwork. You do that in the spirit of cooperation. You ask for cooperation. You ask for guidance. Then I would just suggest that we turn to the private sector. We unshackle the private sector, whether it's in the field of energy, whether it's in the field of productivity. We look to the private sector for capital formation, the creation of jobs, and we give the private sector the incentive they need. Maybe it's going to be tax credits. But at the same time, we look at the so-called person in the middle American man, the middle American woman, who just pay and pay and pay. There has to be some immediate effort to recognize their problems, whether it's tax credits for education, whether it's indexing the tax system so that when they receive a pay raise, they won't be tossed into a higher tax bracket. And it's a combination of these things that I believe will bring us energy independence, which will slow down inflation. We need to do it. We need to produce it. I just can't believe that we can adopt a no-growth policy in this country, and we seem to be on that track. We're going to have to go out and tell the producers in this country, we're behind you, we're going to help you, we're going to take care of low-income Americans, but we're going to make certain in the process that we don't bring other people into that category by continued regulation, higher and higher taxes, and more government.
Senator Dole, thank you for being with us on Election 80.
Paul, thank you, and I thank those who made this program possible. It's a service to all of us, and I would just say this, I have a preference. I think the people ought to be for me, but the important thing is that those who view this program are taking an active role in politics. You have a big responsibility in the state of New Hampshire. You could well decide who the next President of the United States will be. Thank you.